The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to APQC's webinar, Building KM Skills, Getting to Know Our 2020 KM Conference Speakers. This webinar will preview some of the sessions that will be at APQC's 2020 Knowledge Management Conference in our interactive learning track. Before we get started, just a few things to keep in mind. You can tweet about today's webinar using the hashtag KMAPQC. All lines are in listen-only mode, but if you have any questions, you can enter them to the right of your screen in the Q&A window, or you can use the raise your hand feature and we'll try to get to your question live. We only have about 30 minutes for this session, but we will try to get to some of the audience questions that have come through at the end. Now, Cindy, I'd like to turn it over to you. Get us started.
Thank you, Zakia. Hello, everyone. This is Cindy Hubert. I am thrilled to be with you all today. I'm thrilled to be joined by three of our breakout speakers that will be with us at the end of April, beginning of May at our 2020 KM conference. And Zakia just made me come alive with that interactive learning because it's such an exciting time in knowledge management right now. If you look at one of the things that we have seen a lot is knowledge management's focus on the end user. 15 years ago, we really didn't do that. We would push out tools, big capabilities, approaches, and just say, use them, adapt. And now there's a much more focused look to say, you know, what do people really need? Because, and I wanted to give you a little bit of stage setting before I introduce our speakers today, because there's kind of a unique way that we are looking at our users. And Zakia, I'm going to let you advance the next slide. It's not moving for me. I don't want to go too far. But when you start thinking about our learners, and when you think about KM programs 15 years ago, it's probably why a few fizzled out and didn't quite make it because they didn't think about this customer. And this is what you're seeing it on this slide. And this is a kind of a new way to think about your customer, people who are participating in knowledge flow, needing to create, identify, share, and use knowledge. And we classified them in a unique way in a couple of months ago. Our research lead, Lauren Trees for Knowledge Management at APQC, gave it a new twist. And I really thought this was a great stage setting because what you're going to be hearing from these three speakers today are things that can really span the life cycle of your customer, of the person that is participating, the knowledge worker, in all of your approaches. So that was the fun part of interactive learning. It's to help you take away a tool. You're not going to be just sitting in a session, but you're going to be very interactive, talking about how this works from these organizations' perspective. And they're going to give you some tips and techniques to take away, to think about the new hires, learners, contributors, experts, and retirees across your life cycle. And we all have them. I don't think anybody can argue that they don't have a mixture of these people in their organization. So let's not wait any further. Let me introduce to you our three of our breakout speakers today, and three people who gave me some time today. I don't want to delay in getting them on. There's Joel Brown Grant, who is the Senior Advisor at U.S. Department of State. He's going to be talking about storytelling, something that we learned years ago, but he has brought it to life again in a very unique way, and I'm anxious for him to respond to some of my questions today and some of yours. I also have with me Jennifer Hawkins. She's going to do a repeat performance for us. She's now manager at NASWA Knowledge Exchange, and we're so excited to have you with us, and we're looking forward to your discussion about the virtual workforce, Jennifer, because guess what? We are all there again for many interesting things going on across the world today. Thanks for joining us. And then finally, Brittany Persinger, Manager of Knowledge Management at World Vision. Yes, she deals with big, wicked problems there. And I love your title, Brittany. It just makes me want to learn Life After Love, what happens after communities of practice fail. So thank you all, guys. And I'm going to go straight to our question to our audience today. Feel free to type in your chat. Kia will be monitoring that for us. We'll stop and pause at the end to take some questions. But I have 3 big pressing questions to kind of get you interested and into what these speakers are going to be talking about. Joelle, I'm going to let you start this, and we'll do a round robin, you, Brittany, and Jennifer, and share just a brief introduction of the technique, the tip, or approach you're going to be discussing at the conference. Joelle, in your case, it's storytelling. Give us an overview.
Hi, hello, good morning. Can everybody hear me?
I think we can. Thank you.
Perfect, perfect. I just wanted to make sure. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I wanted to, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I've been working in storytelling for several years now. One of the things that I've noticed over my years of working in storytelling within government and in other institutions is that there's always this interest in terms of, hey, we need to do storytelling and we need paying people to do storytelling because we need to capture all that knowledge. But one thing that I've noticed over the years is that many times people who come to do the storytelling or to try to get a storytelling initiative, they don't know where to start, or they don't have all the skills, or they don't have sort of a set of guidelines or principles in terms of, what do I need to do to get started on storytelling? What do I need to know? Do I need to know what a story is, or do I need to know what type of stories there are? So as I've been looking at this over the years, I've noticed that there are many different things that KM folks need to know in order to be successful when they're putting together a storytelling initiative or a storytelling effort within an organization. So my presentation is about what those skills are and how we can develop those skills to be effective. And just to give you a quick idea, some of those skills are, for example, something as basic as understanding the full structure of the story. What is the structure of a story, and how do we take the structure of a story and bring it to an organizational context where we talk about, well, what are the important plots that people pay attention to? Where do we find the stories? One of the things that I will talk about in my presentation is a little bit about the KM folks who are doing storytelling have to be a little bit of ethnographers, understand the audience, understand the communities that they're in, and understand what it is that they're interested in. And what I'm trying to say to folks is, how do you do that? How do you become a little bit of an ethnographer within your organization to understand what stories will appeal to those communities, what stories will be effective? Another thing that I talk about is, if you're a KM person and you have to do storytelling, are you telling the story, or are you capturing the stories for wider distribution? What is the difference? If you're capturing the story, one of the things we'll talk about is, how do you conduct a storytelling interview? I've done that, and it's a very interesting perspective, because it's not just an interview. You have to listen to the person and try to figure out what is the angle. In my experience, and I'll conclude with this, just to give a little bit more of on the storytelling interview, I've noticed that when I would try to capture stories and interview folks for storytelling, one of the things that I would run into is that people would start in a story and then they would start rambling. And I would be like, well, how do I bring them back to the point to make sure that the story is an interesting story that will reach out to the audiences? So these are some of the things. I know I'm going a little bit quickly through it, but I just want to make sure I maximize my time. But these are some of the things that we will talk about. What are the skills that we need as KM professionals to set up a storytelling effort or initiative, and how do we carry them out? And just to give you a little bit of a preview, I'm actually writing a book on this that will be published in December by Emerald Publishing.
Oh, thank you, Joelle. Well, oh, how exciting an author with us. We appreciate it. No, thank you for the overview. And we're going to get back to that, because we all love stories, and they've been a core part of KM for 25 years. Brittany Persinger, tell us a little bit about communities and the whole shebang, because I know you guys do them well over there.
We do. And our session is titled Life After Love. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever everybody is in the world. Our session is titled Life After Love, What Happens After COPs Fail. And we named it that not just because we really appreciate Cher for what she's done, but because failure and talking about failure is a bit disruptive. And we really wanted to have a conversation kind of based on World Vision's experience with these communities of practice as a really key knowledge management intervention. What happens when they fail? Because they do. And so really providing kind of a safe space for people to come together and really have that conversation. As KM managers, we sometimes don't really think about the long-term implications of not really adhering to those recommended standards for communities of practice. So for example, building from a business case or having a lead, a COP lead that is active and dedicated and at a level where they can influence change. And so when a COP fails, sometimes leaders and COP members can be really wary to kind of dive into another knowledge management intervention like that. Like, well, we tried that. What else is there? So to tell our respective stories, my co-presenter and I are going to share some key ways to avoid COP failure based on our collective lessons learned from our experiences of essentially being handed COPs that either had already failed or were in the process of failing for one reason or another, and being told to fix them. And then in the spirit of interactive learning, and probably the most important thing, we will be handing it back over to you, the participants, to share with us and your peers what your experience has been with COP failure and what you've learned about it and from it, and how knowledge management has really made a comeback. So hence life after love. So that's really what we'll be focused on. We're really excited about it.
Oh, thank you, Brittany. You know, you fit in so well. I'm so glad you said it. Our whole conference is built around disruption to innovation, and we're embracing disruption right now. So I think we're going to learn a lot from this. Okay, Jennifer Hawkins, you came to us at APQC. She was at our conference a few years back as an accelerated knowledge session presenter. You wowed us all. Now you've moved on from the Peace Corps to another role. And tell us a little bit about that and what you're going to be talking about.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Hawkins. Super excited to be rejoining the APQC team during the conference this year. And this session that we're going to focus on is KM for Virtual Workforce. The organization I work for now, the National Association for State Workforce Agencies, is pretty much a completely remote or distributed organization. It's a nonprofit with staff all over the country. We do have a small headquarters office in Washington, D.C., but like I said, 85% of the staff are distributed around the nation. So what does that mean for knowledge management? This session is really going to get to the root of that. It's an ideation session, so while we will talk about some of the practices, promising practices, and things we've learned that have started to help us be a little bit more proficient in managing our institutional knowledge within NASWA, we also want to turn that back over, similarly to what Brittany was saying, turn that back over to you, the participants, and really talk through what other organizations are experiencing. You heard Cindy allude to it earlier, but a lot of organizations are sort of facing, what do we do if we weren't a virtual organization and now, because of an issue in the country, we need folks to be able to work from home? And how do we continue to make them feel connected? Do we continue to onboard new staff successfully, make sure that they have the knowledge and tools they need to succeed? And what does that even look like? It's not just about the technologies, although that's a huge part of it, but it's also about the processes and the norms that you have in place. And so we'll go through all of that. And the hope is that everybody will leave with a wide variety of ideas and tools that they can take back to their organizations and explore more deeply given their organization's specific context. So we hope everybody comes out.
You three haven't gotten them fired up yet. I don't know who will. So that's really exciting. Well, and you know, so to our audience today, think about it. We've talked about the storytelling, which is sort of that causal linkage that you need when you're telling about what KM does and what the impact is. You're getting the disruptive side and how you move through that. And ideation, Jennifer, how fabulous, moving to innovation. So, Brittany, I want you to talk a little bit more when you think about your tip, and you don't have to give away all your secrets, but give us a few insights. you know, when you look at what I started with saying, you've got this variety of people who you're asking to engage and participate with you in a knowledge flow. You know, is the technique, is it easy to learn? And what do we need? What does a person need to learn this approach? Tell us how to get prepared to see you.
So genuinely, it would be helpful before coming into this to kind of be familiar with what those recommended standards for communities of practice are. And shameless plug, I'm sure that Cindy won't mind me mentioning that APQC does have a lot of resources on this. But being familiar with some of those techniques beforehand can really help you dive in. But again, because we'll kind of be giving our, not to give too much away, but we'll have a top 10 based on our experience, certainly not the gospel truth of, you know, things to do, but the top 10 things that we have found that are validated by some of APQC's findings on this as well. So being familiar with what those recommended standards are, kind of like I mentioned earlier, building from a business case, having a dedicated lead for the community of practice, making sure that there's a business team that guides the formation of it, having a balance between having it be user-led and kind of, you know, leader-led. And so these kind of things that we picked up along the way. So being familiar with those things would be good, but because we're going to touch on them anyway, it's not like if you come in completely not without it that you'll be completely lost. You'll get it. And then also just kind of in the disruptive, talking about failure, we will be talking about things where we failed, and we're really encouraging this kind of spirit of, and it's not something that in a professional environment a lot of people are comfortable with, so just kind of really making it a safe space and diving right in, and we're all in this together. And so just kind of being prepared for that, and everything will be fine.
Oh, that's great, Brittany. Because you know what, the safe space is hard, and a lot of times when you're not in an organization that doesn't have it, I think your tools and techniques will really help us as knowledge managers or agents begin to think about how to do that. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, ideation. What do we come from? How do we do it? Yeah, tell us what we need. No.
So I know it seems like, well, what am I supposed to bring to the table? But this session is more about creativity, flexibility, openness, and patience, because there is no one size fits all for something like managing a virtual workforce and what that means for knowledge management. And so, as I mentioned previously, those who are a part of a virtual organization, where there's remote workers, even if you have a hub, but you do have a distributed workforce, they're at higher risk of feeling isolated, of feeling disconnected, of not having the same access to some of the sources of institutional knowledge that you would have if you're all in the same physical space together. And we all know that there are those opportunities to just, you know, ask a question because you just walk over to somebody's office, or you just lean over the wall to somebody's cube. And so what do you do when you don't have the ability to do that, when you don't have the water cooler, so to speak? So we'll go through some tips and tricks on how you can set up your organization to compensate for that. And as we continue to evolve with technology, that's certainly going to become more prevalent. And so it's something that even if your organization isn't there yet, I highly recommend considering attending, so that you can think about what it will be like 10 years from now, 5 years from now even, or 15 years from now. It's something that definitely every organization is going to face. Another piece of that that we'll discuss is onboarding and handling different levels of technological capacity. We have a wide, you'll have a wide range of employees with different ages, different backgrounds, different comfort levels with technology. And so your answer can't just be, oh, we'll just have technology fix all of the connection problems. And it's a lot more than that, a lot more to it than that. And so we'll go over what we do, and then we'll hear from your colleagues that attend the workshop to hear what they do.
Jennifer, I love it. So my advice is, if I'm headed to her session, I'm going to come with some design thinking in mind. So thinking about that end user that I'm looking at. And again, they're big. Sometimes you have to pick part and parcel who you're going to talk to. This will be fun. Joelle, talk a little bit about storytelling, because, you know, we always say we've said for years, storytelling is the way to go. It does so many things, but yet some of us struggle with it. So what do we need to be prepared to do and be prepared for when we come see you?
Okay, one thing I just wanted to make just a quick comment to the communities of practice.
Yes.
I think we'll have a very interesting. I definitely will go to your session because I think that there is a very interesting conversation. I presented a paper at a KM conference last year, or I did a presentation on transforming communities of practice into storytelling communities, and I think that there is a lot of interesting perspectives there in terms of, you know, what makes a community of practice fail, and what can make it be revitalized. And one of those things I think is storytelling. So that would be an interesting conversation. Now, in terms of what to look forward in my presentation, I think that the main thing is my presentation is not necessarily. I'm not going to make it. It's not like a lecture. I mean, I'm going to present a list of ideas, of things that I have done, that I have seen work. But my presentation is also will be open to, in this sort of true knowledge management fashion, to a sharing of experiences where other people tell me what they have tried and what they have done with storytelling. And another thing that we will do is to have a little bit of a critical look at some of the techniques that I'm presenting, to say, well, do you think this will work in your organization? What will be the sort of possible pitfalls, or what are the opportunities that you would see? So what I want to do is to present the content, but also have that kind of a conversation where people can say, can give feedback in terms of what they think might be useful to them, and how some of these techniques and ideas maybe won't fit one pattern, but may be able to be used in a different way. So I want to make it as open as possible, so that we can all sort of share in our experiences.
Thank you, Joelle. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, I had one more question. So in the interest of time, I want us to have a little time to do that. And Jennifer, I'll come to you first. Let me get my slide to move a little bit, because it's really about knowledge management as a culture journey. Because we all know it is, but there's so many pieces. You've talked a lot about processes, and I'm so respectful of that, because it's core to what we believe too. So talk a little bit about what you're going to be speaking to in the virtual workforce, and how this is going to support change for us, because we're in a volatile time right now. Oh, Jennifer, we're not hearing you. There you go.
Sorry, I just realized.
Okay.
For me, it's all about getting those easy wins and building trust. It is a culture journey. I strongly believe that. And, people aren't just going to change just because you said to. They'll change because of the validated and proven trust that's been established, and that takes work, but it's something that hasn't failed me yet. So when you get those easy wins, when you start to build that trust and that relationship with folks, then you can move deeper into the change within your organization. And for me, that's the foundation of it all.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Joelle, talk a little bit about storytelling as a tool for change.
Well, storytelling is very important as a tool for change, because one of the things that you see that is very common in organizations is that sometimes leaders in organizations think that the case for change can be made just by making an emphasis on numbers and on facts. But one of the things that is important about storytelling is that storytelling allows people to make a connection between, make connections with each other. One of the things about storytelling that is important is that when you present arguments in the form of a story, you take away you make it something that is more relevant to people's everyday lives. One of the things that's important about organizational storytelling is that it allows people to connect with each other, to see each other's experiences, for me to see my experience in your experience, for me to make that connection. So when you do anything, for example, if you think about strategic planning, sometimes we think about strategic planning as something that is made up of facts and numbers. But there is a story behind strategic planning that can be important for the person at the top of the organization to somebody at the very bottom of your organization. So presenting it in the form of a story, talking about why it matters to people in their lives, why it can connect to their experience. That's the function of storytelling. And what I'm looking to do is to get people to think about how storytelling can be a way to sort of strengthen relationships and strengthen the connection between each other's the experience between people within an organization. I hope that gives you a sense of what I'm trying to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Personally, Joelle, I was introduced to storytelling very early in my career in knowledge management, and the World Bank was using it quite a bit there and using it in a very impactful way. And as I said, we were so thrilled to have you join us, because I feel like while everybody thinks that it's just, oh yes, everybody can tell a story, I know that not to be true. There's techniques behind it, there's some mechanics, and then of course there's the inspiration, and I think you're going to go a long way in inspiring us all.
Yes, I'm very excited, and I'm really looking forward to doing this, because just one thing to close my point is that, as you're saying, a lot of people think that storytelling, for example, when you think about data storytelling, I just had this conversation the other day, that they think about data storytelling and they think of visualization, but there's so much more about storytelling in terms of what's behind the data, how did we come to the data, what happened after. So there is a lot of work that people can do. And I'll just give you one quick example, an experience I had many years ago in another organization. I was working for a data group, and we did an initiative called Data Horror Stories. So it was right around Halloween, and we thought, well, what can we do around Halloween that is important? I mean, it's also a learning event. So we had people talk about stories, horror stories around data, and it was all a learning experience. All stories ended with what was the lesson learned. So I think that there's a lot that can come out in terms of how to put together a storytelling event, and how to make it really matter, and how to make it align to the goals and the visions of an organization.
That's fun. I like that. Zakia, we have just a few minutes left. Was there any just pressing question that we had from the audience that you could
Yes,
ask?
absolutely. So there's one that came in that asked about, do I need in-depth experience to do the things that you guys are talking about?
Ooh, okay. So Jennifer, you shook that head really fast.
Yeah, no. This is an opportunity where I think even not being jaded by past experience could be helpful, but it'll also be a great learning opportunity to hear from those who are more seasoned.
Oh, nice. Brittany, what about yours? Do I have to have a lot of experience in this?
No, and what I was going to answer for this question about the culture journey is that, communities of practice can often be somebody's first or kind of most tangible experience of what knowledge management looks like or feels like. And so when it fails, people can be kind of hesitant to do one again. And so being, open about and reflecting and learning from that failure has really helped us change attitudes, behavior around knowledge management. And I think that that's something, even if you haven't led a community of practice, even if you don't know what it is, I've said the acronym COP a couple times, but even if it's not something that you're super familiar with, this is something, talking about failure in this kind of intervention can be applied to other things. And so it's really a space to come in and be, like we said earlier, kind of a safe space and talking about it. There are other interventions that can help you, equip and grow your staff and share information and have these learning exchanges. But communities of practice, or communities of competence, as some people call them, are kind of those things that you can do. And so it is an opportunity to also learn if it's the right thing for whatever you're trying to accomplish in your organization. So absolutely no need to be an expert, and there will be people that you can learn from as well.
Brittany, and thank you for helping me recover. I did not mean to overlook you on question 3. You looked at it so beautifully. We can team on this one. Thank you so much. No, appreciate it. Joelle, tell us, do we need any experience of storytelling? You're going to help us through
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Every level of experience is invited. You don't need to have known anything about storytelling. We'll get everybody up on board.
Yeah, you know, you three, y'all excite me because I've been in this field for a long time. And I think even those that are coming to the conference that have done, you know, have led programs and have just done these wildly fantastic things, I think they can learn so much from the simplicity of engaging people and the topics that you guys are talking about. They're not to say they're simple, because they are not. But just the way you all have described them so eloquently just excites me that I think we're all going to learn a lot from you all. And Zakiya, with that, I'm going to thank Joelle, Brittany, and Jennifer. You guys are tops. Thank you so much for joining me this my morning and others afternoon. We're looking so forward to having you, and I know we're going to have a great time together.